Today we're going to be talking about conducting, a little bit about conducting, and the reason for this video is that a little while ago I put out a couple of videos that showed me conducting my band, my brass band, and there were a number of comments saying, oh, could you do a video on conducting? So that's what this one is. Now, a disclaimer, I'm not a vastly experienced, trained conductor. I'm just a person that conducts a band, and I've done so for just the last few years. So feel free to take what I say with a grain of salt, because it may apply to you, may not. It's just some thoughts that I have based on conducting. Right, so 3 points that I'm going to go through today. Number one, your beat. As a conductor, the very first thing that you need to do is ensure that you're keeping your band in time. If you are beating in a way that is unclear, then I think you've already shot yourself in the foot in terms of your usefulness as a conductor. One of the things that I was guilty of early on was giving these big flamboyant beats and doing all these twiddly things and whatnot, and that may look very good from an audience perspective, and it may suit to, you know, puff your ego up a little bit, but from a band and from a practical perspective, I don't think it's really got a lot of value. Often just a small beat that clearly denotes the time is all that's required in many situations. And going hand in hand with that, your band needs to know what sort of a beat you are doing. So you've got a number of time signatures that can be beated in a number of different ways. 3/8, for example, that can be beated as in 3, or it could be beat in 1, depending on the speed in which you're going. 6/8 conversely can be beat in 6 beats a bar or 2 beats in a bar. 9/8 can be 9 beats in a bar or 3 beats in a bar. All of these things, or many of these time signatures can change, so it's very important that your band can, number one, follow your beat, but secondly, knows what your beat means. This is particularly true when you've got some of the more complicated time signatures like 5/8 or 7/8, because oftentimes something like 5/8 or say particularly 7/8 will be beat in 3 beats a bar, but one beat might mean 3 quavers and the other 2 might mean 2 quavers, so you might have one beat that's longer than the other, something like that. And so your band needs to know what your beats mean. Point number 2, whilst the beat is the first thing that a conductor needs to get right, oftentimes the conductor or bandmaster or musical director or whatever term you want to use, they need to regulate much more than just tempo. It is true that you've got some bands, competition grade bands, where you've got very talented and experienced musicians that will look after dynamic changes, rhythmic changes, stylistic changes. They'll look after all of that sort of stuff themselves. But in many bands, the bandmaster or the conductor needs to be able to regulate the musical style and things like that. And there are a number of tools that we've got to do this. We can make our beats larger if we want people to play with more volume. We can get more engaging with our beat. We can beat smaller if we want a quieter beat. We can use our hands to, you know, give me more, give me less, stop playing. Or you can give lewd gestures to people that are playing in the wrong times. You can do all of this. And so it's very important, I believe, for a conductor to be able to use their beat, use their body language, use their style to regulate other elements of a musical performance. I once had a conductor who would only beat, the only thing that they did when they conducted was just keep the time. That's all they did. The dynamics, the style changes, all of that sort of stuff was left up to the band to do. And consequently, none of the band did it, because there was no leadership. There was no leadership. It was just the expectation you would do something. And in my experience, that approach doesn't really give good results. As an example, this conductor one time before we went to play a piece, they showed up a little flash card, and that flash card just said dynamics, as if that was the best way to get across that the band needed to focus on dynamics. So point 2, in a nutshell, the conductor needs to be able to vary their beat, vary their body language, and interact with their band so as to regulate other aspects of a musical performance other than just tempo. And so that brings us on to point number 3. And this point I'm going to call approachability. Music is a collaborative effort. Whilst you may have a conductor up the front who says, this is how I want it to go, this is how I want it to be, ultimately if he doesn't have the buy-in of all of the members of the musical group that are playing, then the experience is never going to be as good as it could be. Now what I mean by this is that I've been in a number of bands where the conductor is very unapproachable. There's been a couple of times in the past, I can think of one where I was playing percussion for an orchestra, had lots of beats, lots of bars rest, and I didn't know whether the conductor was beating a very fast 3 or a slow 1 in a bar, because all of his beats were just up and down. And so I asked him, how are you beating this? Are you beating in 3 or are you beating in 1? When you're counting, you know, you need to know exactly what it is. And he took that as a personal affront, and he gave me a lecture about no one has ever had any issues with understanding his beat. What mental deficiency do you have that you can't follow me, etc, etc. And I didn't get my question answered, so I sort of had to ask somebody else what he was doing. And that sort of thing tends to make musicians in your band a bit resentful, tends to make them feel as though, oh, well, you know, what am I doing here really? And so I think it's very important for a conductor to ensure that their band members actually feel valued, feel like their contributions are worth something, and you know, even if that is or isn't the case, and to ensure that they've actually bought into what you're trying to achieve musically. Insulting people, driving them away, making them resentful just, you know, through a flippant response is not something that is ever particularly helpful. And I think it's something that it's very easy when you're a conductor to fall into that trap of not having enough patience to deal with your band's people, because being a conductor isn't easy. You've got, you know, umpteen dozen different parts, you've got different people, you've got different musical ideas, you've got stresses of time and pressure and all that sort of stuff to make your life difficult. And so the public relations, the people relations that you've got can sometimes fall by the wayside. So it's something that I think is quite important. So that's it really. 3 different points that I have about being a conductor. Number 1, ensure that people can follow what you're doing. Number 2, learn how to moderate and regulate the entire aspect of a band's performance through stylistic changes in your beat and in your body language. And number 3, ensure that you are approachable. The bandmaster or conductor is never better than the band. It's a collaborative approach and something that everyone needs to feel equally valued and as though their contributions matter. I hope this video has been useful, and thanks for watching.